Hugo smiled at Hugh, his grin wide and teasing. "You can pat me on the head, too. Don't be shy," he said, leaning forward expectantly. "No, and I'm not shy," Hugh protested sharply, eyeing his brother's cheerful expression with silent irritation. "He's so annoying," Hugh thought inwardly. "It shows that we're close," Hugo continued. "Get away from me," Hugh snapped. "Normally, parents are supposed to pat their children's heads," Hugo said, his tone softening slightly. "But since our parents aren't around, we can do it for each other." "No, I don't think that's necessary," Hugh replied coldly. "But what if I want you to?" Hugo asked, his eyes glimmering with innocent hope. "I never asked if you wanted me to," Hugh retorted, trying to stay indifferent. "Oh, go on. I'm ready," Hugo said, presenting his head confidently. Hugh sighed, hesitated for a moment, then gently patted his brother's head, quickly, almost begrudgingly, before retracting his hand. "You happy?" he asked, looking away. "Yeah," Hugo replied softly, a faint red rising to his cheeks. "You're such a moron," Hugh said, annoyed, but Hugo only laughed. "Why do you smile all the time?" Hugh asked, his voice a mix of irritation and curiosity. "Because smiling a lot brings good luck, Hugh," Hugo said warmly. "You should try it too." Hugh said nothing, but his expression softened as he touched Hugo's head again, this time with less resistance. Hugo's memory flickered, Lucia's gentle hand patting Damien's head. His expression hardened slightly as he squeezed Lucia's arm, his voice deep and protective. "What I mean is, tell me if he ever tries to cross you," he said. His tone startled her, and she flinched. "That'll never happen," Lucia exclaimed, flustered. Her sudden outburst caught Duke Hugo off guard. Without a word, he pulled her into a tight embrace. Her cheeks flushed pink as her heart began to race. Hugo buried his face against her shoulder, his own heartbeat quickening to match hers. Lucia clutched onto him, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart as warmth filled the space between them. They remained in that embrace for a long moment. Duke Hugo gazed at her, a faint, tender smile crossing his face before he tightened his hold. At another time, Hugo's voice echoed in the Duke's memory. "Hugh, I have something to tell you. There's someone I want to marry." Hugh remembered the brightness in his brother's eyes that day, the happiness radiating from him. "I'll introduce you to her sometime," Hugo had added, his face glowing with excitement. "That day," the Duke thought, "you looked as if you were the happiest man in the world." His voice softened in thought. "My brother, if you were alive today, there's something I'd want to say to you too. I have someone special now as well. I've already married her." His gaze lingered on Lucia's face, a quiet smile passing between them. "Here's the report up to today," Ashen said, setting a heavy pile of papers before him. The Duke murmured, taking the first document and skimming through it. His eyes widened in faint surprise. "This is from Fabian," he muttered. "He finds joy collecting gossip while working late nights?" He turned the page, reading further. "Are these the rumors going around?" he wondered aloud, scanning the text. "It's all just idle gossip," he concluded before reaching for the next report. "There's talk of Vivian's dowry circulating in the capital," he read, frowning. He considered who might have exposed that detail. "It must have been the king," he thought. Boasting again. "I figured as much," he said under his breath, smirking faintly. "And he calls himself a king." He flipped to the next report and froze. "The Duchess is rumored to be so beautiful that the Duke whisked her away to the north so no one could even get a glimpse of her," it read. He stared at the words, expression unreadable. "A real beauty, huh?" he thought, Lucia's smile flashing across his mind. "Well, it's not an entirely ridiculous rumor, because it's true," he admitted silently. "More than that, people think I married her just to have her all to myself." He leaned back, reflecting. It may not be exactly right, but it's not far from the truth. He recalled how the gossip likely spread, his decision to build a women's-only track and restrict certain events so that no other man could see Lucia. "It's true that I brought my wife to the north," he mused, "since we came here right after getting married." Dropping the report, he crossed his arms. There doesn't seem to be any need for concern. It's all true anyway." Later that night, "Wait, Hugh, I need to dry my hair first," Lucia pleaded as Duke Hugo lifted her up effortlessly. "You can do it later," he murmured, planting a kiss on her cheek. "No, I have to do it now," she protested, wriggling in his arms to break free. He chuckled softly to himself. She says that, but she's wrapping her arms around me. How cute, he thought. Then he kissed her again, his laughter quiet and full of warmth. They soon lay in bed, kissing deeply. Duke Hugo paused for a moment, catching his breath. I've been giving it some thought, he said, his voice calm but steady. I think the reason you tire so easily is because we never take a break. So, I'm thinking we need to change that. We'll do it once, then take a break. Do it again, then another break, and repeat. How does that sound? He looked at her as he slipped off his robe. Lucia blinked, her cheeks flushed. You really didn't need to think so hard about that, she said, half laughing. What do you mean? This is important, he replied seriously. So how about it? We'll try something new. He leaned forward with a faint smile. I don't think I'll be agreeing to that. She told him, though her tone softened. Then think of tonight as an experiment, he murmured, lowering his head to her chest and planting light kisses across her skin. I don't see how that makes a difference. Lucia exclaimed, laughing as his kisses tickled her. Soon, Lucia's soft moans filled the room as their bodies moved together in rhythm. The bed creaked faintly under the Duke's steady pace. This is too much, Lucia breathed out, her face flushed, sweat trailing down her temple. Should I stop? Duke Hugo asked, slowing slightly. She shook her head, signaling for him to continue. He pressed a kiss to her forehead before shifting her gently onto her back. Lucia flinched as he slid in again. It's so like her to only like it when I'm gentle, he thought, before gradually increasing his pace. Lucia gripped the sheets tightly, unable to hold back the sounds that escaped her lips. Her body trembled under his movements. Sensing her tension, Hugo slowed down again. She turned her head toward him, and their eyes met before they shared another kiss. He loosened the robe on her shoulders, exposing her body to him completely. Lucia's voice softened. About Damien, I was surprised the moment I saw him. Why? Duke Hugo asked. Because he looked so much like you, she said quietly. So? He asked again, moving gently, causing her to let out a small moan. So I was happy, because he reminded me of you, she whispered, her tone filled with quiet warmth. Like I got a glimpse of what Hugh was like when he was younger, she thought to herself, her gaze fixed on him. That child's still got a long way to go before he's anything like me, Hugo replied. A long way? Just give him 10 years, Lucia said, her voice calm and sure. In that moment, Duke Hugo's movements quickened, catching her off guard. She gasped and called out his name. Hugh! I can't stop, he said through heavy breaths, but his pace unrelenting as he neared his limit. After a while, the room fell quiet. They rested together, Lucia lying against his chest while he held her close. I'm all out of energy, she thought, her body heavy with exhaustion. His hand brushed softly through her hair. His touch, so gentle, she thought, closing her eyes for a moment. Then she spoke again. Why did you send Damien to a boarding school? Hugo paused, his hand stilling in her hair. Lucia knew that noble children were usually taught by governesses. Only recently had sending children to academies become common practice. For most aristocrats, these schools were less about study and more about connections, places for young nobles to meet and form alliances. Because I can't look after him, Hugo said quietly. He recalled how he'd been preoccupied with war when Sir Philip brought Damien to him. I could barely make time to visit him at Roham, he continued, but it surprised me every year how much he grew. He stared upward, his expression unreadable. I never planned to be a father, so Damien coming into my life unexpectedly didn't change much at first. While he was away from the North during the war, Hugo realized how much he missed his home. For the North to remain peaceful, the Terrans had to prosper, he said. I decided we needed an heir. The future of the North depended on it. Of course, not everyone agreed. The vassals and nobles didn't see eye to eye with me, he said. It was unheard of for an illegitimate child to become the heir. But so what if there was no precedent? If I decreed it, then that's how it would be. He sighed lightly. It didn't matter what the nobles said, but when I saw Damien again after a long time, I noticed the gloom that hung over him. The judgmental stares people gave him must have been painful. His voice softened, thoughtful. If I couldn't give him the attention he needed, then the least I could do was send him somewhere he wouldn't be burdened by that. Somewhere safe. Somewhere he could grow without fear or shame. That's why I sent him to the academy, away from the eyes of those who judge him. Hugo's gaze lingered on Lucia as he continued silently in his mind. If it weren't for Damien, I might have abandoned the Terran household entirely. He looked at her gently. Now that I'm here, I can look after him properly. Lucia raised her head slightly, her eyes meeting his. Can't he stay in Roham? She asked softly, her voice tinged with concern as she remained in his embrace. Duke Hugo's expression turned solemn. He and I made a promise, he said quietly. I gave him my word that my title would be his once he graduates. If he quits the academy now, he'll think he's been passed up as the successor. Lucia listened attentively, her expression soft but thoughtful. Do you really think that would be best for him? She asked carefully. Hugo stayed silent for a moment, his eyes distant. Then he sighed. I think it's the only way, he said finally. Lucia looked regretful. Oh no, I didn't think of it like that, she murmured. Duke Hugo reached out, cupping her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek before he leaned forward and kissed her. Their lips met softly, deepening as they lingered in the quiet of the room. When he pulled back, his voice was low. We took a break, he said simply. Huh? Lucia blinked, confused at his words. But before she could ask, Hugo moved suddenly, his body pressing against hers. The sound of the bed creaking filled the silence as Lucia gasped, her breath catching. This feels so good, she whispered, her face flushed, eyes closed as he watched her intently. His movements slowed, and he leaned in closer, their foreheads touching. Vivian, he murmured against her skin. Her heart skipped. Hearing him call her that name made her shiver. I'm not sure since when, but I've gotten used to him calling me Vivian, she thought. Actually, when Hugh calls me that, it feels like I'm discovering a new part of myself. He placed his hands on her waist, his pace increasing again. Hugh, wait! Too fast! Lucia cried, her voice trembling as her body tensed. Moments later, she let out a breathless moan, reaching her limit. The next morning, Lucia lay still in bed, barely able to move. I don't even have enough energy to lift a finger, she thought weakly. I don't think I'll ever let him try that new method again. Curling up under the sheets, she could still feel the exhaustion from the night before. Her mind drifted back to what she'd said to him then. How she had admitted it felt good. The memory made her face burn. Not that I didn't enjoy it. I just can't keep up with him, she admitted inwardly, turning her face toward the sunlight spilling into the room. The weather's so nice, she murmured to herself. I really should get up. She closed her eyes again for a moment, then froze at the sensation of a soft touch against her head. Huh? This gentle touch? Who is it? Opening her eyes slightly, she saw Hugo sitting beside her, his hand brushing through her hair. Oh, it's Hugh, she realized silently. I was worried when I heard you were still sleeping, he said, his tone tender. Are you all right? Lucia frowned lightly. I'm glad you at least feel a little bad. I couldn't sleep all night because of you, she muttered, her expression a mix of irritation and embarrassment. Hugo laughed quietly at her words. That's a relief, he teased. It looks like you're okay after all. He leaned down, kissing her once more. When their lips parted, Lucia suddenly let out a small scream, startled, causing Hugo to look at her in confusion, unsure what had just happened. Lucia covered herself with the bedsheet, stunning Duke Hugo as he looked at her, confused. What's the matter? He asked. My head, she replied, still covering herself. Your head? Does it hurt? I'll get the doctor, he said in a panic, starting to get up, but Lucia quickly held him back. Wait, that's not it, she told him. Last night, I wasn't able to properly dry my hair, so it's a total mess. Hugo observed her quietly for a moment before suddenly grabbing the sheet and pulling it off her. What are you doing? She asked, flustered. Looks the same to me, he said, studying her hair. He's so clueless. Lucia thought, I don't want to look bad in front of the person I like. You're still pretty, he told her. Lucia blushed at his words, then looked at him softly. You womanizer, she said. Womanizer? What? He asked in disbelief. Forget it, Lucia said tiredly, lying back on the bed. Did I do something wrong, Vivian? He asked, genuinely puzzled. This doesn't seem fair. Of course, with my past, I can't say I'm completely innocent. But still, right now I'm being genuine, he thought, his expression darkening. Aren't you busy? Lucia asked, trying to change the subject. Don't change the subject, he replied quickly. I know that's one of the things you think about me, but why would you say that now of all times? What list? Lucia asked, sitting up. You know, the list of terrible things you think about me in your head, Hugo said, looking uneasy. What? You think I keep a list like that? She asked, confused. Haven't you been adding new things you dislike about me? I already know that you do, he said, clearly hurt. Lucia stared at him for a moment, then burst into laughter. Ah, my stomach, she said between laughs, holding her belly. I'm being serious, so why is she laughing? Hugo thought, watching her, his face serious. I never thought he would worry about something like that. And with such a serious look on his face, Lucia thought as she laughed harder. Why is she still laughing? Hugo wondered, frowning. Aha! Can't stop laughing, Lucia said, tears forming in her eyes. So when do you think I add things to this list? She teased. How should I know? It's your list, he replied, dead serious. Lucia tried to hold back her laughter, but couldn't. She rolled on the bed, laughing. Oh dear, he thinks I think bad things about him. I never imagined he'd actually apologize or admit his faults. Is he admitting he's been wrong? She thought, still laughing. I don't have a list like that, she said finally, calming down. I'm happy I got to see this side of him, she thought. I'm too simple-minded to hold grudges like that, she told him with a smile. Then why did you say what you did before? He asked. Well, that's because of what you suddenly said, she admitted. You said I was pretty. Her face turned red. I've heard people call me well-behaved, even adorable, but never pretty. I would never think that about myself, she thought, embarrassed. Hugo looked at her, puzzled. I only said what I actually think. Is that so wrong? Lucia stayed quiet. He's doing it again. I'm pretty? Even like this? She asked, touching her messy hair, her cheeks flushed. He's making my heart flutter with the things he says so casually. He doesn't even have to try. Women already throw themselves at him. Why would he say something like this? You look fine right now. You are pretty, he said seriously. Lucia blushed deeper. Maybe he really means it. When he says it so plainly, it sounds sincere. She looked at him, seeing that he did mean it. Do you want me to say it differently? Your beauty shines so radiantly that I can barely look at you, he said. See, you're making fun of me, Lucia exclaimed. Then tell me what's wrong. I'm only being honest, he said with a sigh. What's his intention for saying these things, she wondered. No, wait. So I am pretty? You think I am? She asked softly. Even if he's not being serious, it's still nice to hear it, she thought. I think you're pretty, he said plainly. Lucia's expression softened as she smiled, her cheeks glowing. Hugo noticed her mood lift and smiled faintly. Oh, who cares if he means it or not? I'm just so happy, Lucia thought, smiling brightly. Don't smile like that, Hugo said, his voice low. I don't think I'll be able to control myself. Duke Hugo watched Lucia quietly, his thoughts heavy yet tender. She looked more at ease than before he left for the border. Lighter, freer, as if she'd finally let go of the things that once weighed her down. But even now, he couldn't shake the uneasiness that clung to his heart. What if she decided that he, too, was one of those burdens she no longer wanted around? During his time away from Roham, Lucia was never far from his mind. He often thought how relieved he was that they had made up before he left, but deep down, there was still that faint ember of doubt. Did they really put out all the flames of their conflict, or merely cover them, hoping they wouldn't reignite later? He believed their relationship had mended, but did she feel the same? He remembered their reconciliation vividly, and yet the questions haunted him. What if she's still hurt by what I said? What if she doesn't even want to look at me when I return? He longed not just for her body, but for her heart. But how could he win love from someone who had already declared she'd never give it? And how does one hold on to something as intangible as love itself? He stood there pondering, eyes fixed on Lucia. Is it okay for you to still be here? I thought you were busy, she asked with a soft smile. Her voice was gentler now, lighter even. She likes it when I call her pretty, he thought, secretly adding it to a growing list of things Lucia loved. I'm busy and not busy at the same time, he replied. There's always more work to do, but I can take a break whenever I wish. So you're not going to work? She asked curiously. No, I will, he answered. I just meant that you don't need to concern yourself. Would it make things difficult if I didn't work? Of course, Lucia said, lying back on the bed. Why? He asked, a bit puzzled. Because if you don't, who would take care of me? You need to make money if you're going to look after your wife. Her simple statement made him smile. She noticed, half exasperated, half amused. He's laughing again. He does this so often. He'll give me this curious look after I say something, then laugh. I like seeing him smile, but I have no idea what's funny, she thought, watching him quietly. It's an extremely easy task to take care of you, you know, he told her. Even with the money I make now, you hardly spend a dime. I spend plenty, she protested. Do you have any idea how much I put into my parties? No, he said plainly. I mean, just on yourself. I've been spending money on myself, she shot back. I bought all those flowers for the garden. That's not what I meant, he said, leaning forward. I mean dresses, jewelry. Yes, I've been spending. It costs more than you think to tailor dresses. And as for jewelry, we already have plenty of family heirlooms stored in the castle. I'll probably die before I ever get to wear them all. He looked at her thoughtfully. He knew that among the nobility, jewelry wasn't just decoration. It was wealth, inheritance, and insurance. The jewelry a woman received in marriage legally belonged to her. If a divorce ever happened, those jewels would be hers, separate from any alimony. Noble wives knew this well and often stocked up just in case. There's no way Lucia doesn't know this, he thought uneasily. But I hope she's not thinking that way. Do you not want to spend the money I make? He asked carefully. Huh? What? Lucia blinked at him, momentarily stunned, and then smiled to herself. He's so adorable. Did he really just ask that? Why would he think that? I can't believe he's being so considerate. She couldn't help but laugh. He's huge, but he's still so cute. Is this because I spent so much time with Damien? Hugh just looks so cute, she thought. Why are you laughing? Hugo asked, puzzled. I had no idea you'd think that, she said between smiles. It's not what you think. I just don't like buying unnecessary things. I see, he replied. You really are prudent about spending. Isn't that a good thing? She asked, still smiling. I never said it wasn't, he scoffed lightly. Spend it. Spend my money, he thought inwardly. But I can't force her. How cute, she murmured to herself, watching him. But Hugo's mind was turning. I need something to tie her down. Marriage itself is a strong bond, but even that doesn't feel like enough. I need to find something that personally motivates her to stay, something she desires. Nothing keeps a person bound like their own interests. Money and power won't work. She doesn't care for either. But what else could move someone? He thought of commoners, those with nothing to their name who still married and built families. What keeps them together? A child? He wondered. But that's something I can never give her. Then a thought struck him. If it's about desire, there is one thing I'm good at. It may be primitive, but people are drawn to what they naturally crave. If I can make her long for me physically, if she desperately wants to share a bed with me, then it's like killing two birds with one stone. Lucia watched him in silence. He looks so serious. I wonder what he's thinking about. Tell me, Hugo said suddenly. Do you enjoy doing it with me? Huh? She blinked, frozen. I mean, in bed, he said plainly. Her face turned red instantly. I think I'm going back to sleep. You should really get back to work, she said, pulling the bedsheet over herself. Lucia, he said softly, what's the problem? Is it the number of times? How long we do it? Or not enough of it? He asked nervously, sweating a little. I'm satisfied, so please stop asking, she yelled, uncovering her face. How can you say such things? How can you even ask that? Hugo watched her for a moment, then smiled. So you're satisfied, he said with a grin. Oh my gosh. Please stop, she said, hiding her face again. There's no need to be embarrassed, he teased gently. We've said far more salacious things before. That was different, she cried out. We're in bed together. Doesn't seem so different to me, he countered calmly. It is different because it's morning, she said quickly, her heart racing as he leaned closer. We've done it in the mornings before, he said, amused. That time you also slept in my bedchamber, she mumbled, turning away. You have such an odd way of seeing things, he said, smirking. So it's fine if we make love all night until morning, but not if we start in the morning? Lucia fell silent. Then he leaned in and their lips met. He kissed her deeply, losing himself in the moment, his hand brushing against her leg, only for her to flinch and press her hands to his chest. Look here, Mr. Beast, she said firmly. If you try anything further, you'll be the one explaining to our guests tomorrow why they have to leave right after arriving. Hugo froze for a moment, then laughed softly. his face turning slightly red. He leaned his forehead against hers and wrapped her in his arms, still smiling. "You really are funny," he said warmly. As he laughed, Lucia could feel his whole body shake gently against hers. "Oh, I'm so happy right now," she thought, tears pricking her eyes. "Now I understand when people say you're so happy that your chest hurts." She leaned closer into his shoulder, not wanting the moment to end.
Thank you for watching this episode of our Manhwa Recap. We hope you enjoyed diving into the world of this story with us. If you loved the content, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more amazing manhwa recaps. See you in the next episode.